well, we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to keep my distance here. Hopefully it won't cause a loud beep. Anyways, I'm glad everybody's here. Thank you for coming. I'm incredibly excited about today's topic. As we know, we're trying to level our skill sets up. And so that way we can all continue to thrive during the shift. And today I'm excited that we have Courtney Nielsen here. She and her husband right now own a brokerage, a KW brokerage actually, and have done some pretty incredible work. And so today we're going to be learning about staging and the importance of staging. Can anybody guess how many listings we have on the market right now? I'm going to look at Dean for the final answer here. How many listings do we have on the market? Just over 9,000. So with listings coming up higher and higher on the market right now, making sure that our clients' houses are adequately prepared is more than ever. And so I'm excited that we have Courtney here to teach us and give her pointers and what we need to do. So without ado, Courtney. Thanks.
Hello, maybe, I don't know. Can you hear me okay with this mic? All right, now it's working, I don't know. Okay. Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, we are going to talk about staging. And before we get into staging, so we had to do a little switcheroo. So we're a little bit out of order. So originally Brad was going to be teaching, and I can't even remember what the topic is, but we just basically switched. So I am actually week 8, and we're bumping us up to week 3. So in week 7, we learn about pricing strategies, and that is another important component to selling a home, right? I think, well, in my opinion, pricing it right and staging it right are the two things that are going to help you get your house sold. So in that pricing class, we talk about, I'm only going to talk about one thing because we need to know it for this class. It talks about 3 ways or 3 reasons why a house is going to get sold, or 3 ways that a house will get sold, right? It comes down to 3 things: price, condition, and location. We can't do a lot about location because it is what it is. We can't pick a house up and move it to another neighborhood, but we can price a home strategically, and we can look at the condition and improve its situation through staging. So it's our job as agents to deliver that 1-2 punch to get your listing sold for the most money possible in the shortest time possible. And we can do that through staging. So, let's go back. A house can be sold in any condition, right? It doesn't have to be in perfect, pristine condition, but what does that mean? If a house is an ugly house, what kind of price will it get? It'll get less, right? So that balance, the price and the condition have to balance out. So if you want to sell your home for top market, then what are you going to do over here with the condition to improve it to get top market? So that the buyers, when they're looking at it, they see the value in this home at top market. They're willing to pay this because it's clean, it's been new paint, it has brand new paint, has new carpet, it might have new countertops. You know, it's got some fancy things. They can see the value of that versus one that hasn't been touched up, right? So as agents, we have to think of as staging as a marketing tool. This is one of your strategies that you can bring to the table to help your sellers see value in you as an agent. Another thing that we think about with staging is it sort of creates the fantasy lifestyle for a buyer. And we're going to talk about what that means as we go throughout our presentation today. How do we create that fantasy lifestyle for the buyer when they come looking at and walking through the home? And as the seller, they either have to offer more for the same price as their competitors, or they have to offer the same quality at a lower price, right? So that goes back to that price versus condition thing. They have to balance. So if you've had a bunch of people come through your house and it's not selling, then usually that's an indication that price and condition are not balanced. So you either have to do one of 2 things. You either have to drop the price or fix whatever is preventing people from buying the house. Now, it's easier to take care of all of these things up front. It's really hard to go back to the house and do all of the fixes and things that need to be done after a ton of buyers have already come in. So it's really important to set the stage from the beginning, be totally prepped, don't list the house, put it on the market, actively market it until it's ready. And sometimes that's hard to talk to our sellers about because they're anxious. They want to get their house on the market and they want to get it sold. But if you can prep them in the best way possible, then they will get it sold in the quickest time possible and for the most money, right? So, yeah, staging's our ticket to getting the house sold. All right, so today we're going to talk about the benefits of staging. We've kind of jumped into that a little bit, but we're going to talk about what we do in a staging consultation, how we evaluate the house, and how we implement staging strategies. And then the last thing that we'll talk about is empty homes. What do we do about empty homes? Do we just leave them? Do we stage them? What do we do? So I think that most of us though, so I think the bulk of the presentation the bulk of the meat and potatoes is helping sellers who are living in the house prep and stage their house so that it can sell. Because that's sometimes harder, I think, to get sellers to get to where we need them to be, right? So, all right. So first thing before we do anything, we have to get the listing. Sometimes when you go like guns blazing in and you're like, yes, we can stage your home. We're going to do this and this and this. Sometimes sellers get a little overwhelmed. And so there's a delicate balance that we have to play when we do talk to the sellers about staging their homes. Now, I do always set the tone. So we have, as part of our listing presentation, we have in there, a section that talks about staging and kind of briefly touches on, what they need to do to get the wheels turning in their minds, that staging is something that we can do. But a lot of people have a misconception of what staging is. When you think of staging, what do you think off the top of your head? What does that mean? Furniture decorations, like we have to hire somebody. Like think of HGTV, they just like remodel a house and then they call in the stagers and they bring in all this furniture, right? That doesn't necessarily have to happen with every house that you list. You don't necessarily have to bring in furniture every time. So there's other things that go into staging a home. But first things first, get the listing. If they're feeling resistant to staging, then just kind of like, just let it go. Yeah, it's your house. We can do what you want, but still, kind of plant that seed of staging. If they're receptive to the idea, then you can talk a little bit more about it at that time. Or if they're like ready, raring to go, then you can just dive right into what you're going to offer for staging.
What kind of options do you give for someone who's living in their house?
So when I am helping a client, well, I'm going to get into that. Yeah, I'm going to get into that. Mostly it's just right now is helping the sellers understand the importance of, so you really need to, during the listing presentation and pre-listing presentation, and even after, we are talking about the benefits of staging and really talking about after we've gotten the listing, we're going to talk about their return on investment. So now, all right, so sometimes sellers just don't want to do anything, right? They just don't. And that's okay. We can still do the best we can with what we have. We're going to be professionals and we're going to jump in and do the best that we can. But if we emphasize that it's going to be higher with staging and we're only going to recommend changes that are going to be worth their time, energy, and money. So think about it. If they put some money into staging, it could save them thousands of dollars of holding costs while a house sits. So if we, look, how much is it going to cost you for your mortgage for the next couple of months while it sits? Think of, but then the cost of staging, what would that be? and decide if it's worth it or not in terms of money wise. If they're still unreceptive, you can give some real examples. You can pull up some pictures and you can say, look, here's a house that hasn't been staged. Look at what it looks like after it's been staged. And then help the sellers to put themselves into the buyer's position. They need to think like a buyer. Their house is now a product to sell. It's no longer their home. It's now a product. That's hard to tell people that it's not their home. I mean, it is their home, right? And sometimes people, like I have a friend once who she is like a decorator. Her house is like a boutique. You walk in and there's things everywhere. And it's super cute. It's darling. But when we went in and we said, okay, we have to like take all this down, she actually felt almost offended because we asked her to take all of her pretty pieces down. And so we had to talk to her like, look, this isn't about your decorating style. Your house is lovely. It's cute. It fits your personality, but we have to neutralize the house to make it so that it appeals to a broader population, right? So think of your house as a buyer. I mean, wait, whatever. You get the idea. All right. Okay. So our goals of staging is we're going to improve the overall condition. We're going to minimize the clutter and personal belongings and create a vision for the buyer. So our staging process, remember how we said, oh, like HGTV, they're just going to bring in and like refurnish the house? No. Staging starts with decluttering, depersonalizing, reorganizing furniture. So back to your question, is usually when I go into a home, my first thing is that, hey, I'm going to walk with you through your house. I'm going to, look, take it all in. I'm going to write some notes of what I think needs to happen. And then I'm either going to email them to them or I'm going to just talk to them right then and there. Hey, we need this chair out. Because we want to like create empty space in the house. So I'm going to look at ways how we can utilize their furniture that they already have, whether that means we're going to take some out or we're just going to rearrange it in the house. Sometimes people have beds shoved up against the wall, like the headboard's fine to be against the wall, but you don't want the bed up against the wall either, like the side. So just moving it away from the wall is a simple thing that helps to create that space that helps the room look bigger. We think, oh, by moving it against the room, we're making bigger room, but actually it doesn't appear bigger that way. So you got to create space. So neutralizing it, taking down, one of the things that I tell people is, we love Jesus. We do. And, and I'm only asking you to I'm not asking you to take Jesus out of your heart. I'm just asking you to take Jesus off the wall for a couple of weeks. So we take Jesus down and we take sports down and we take anything that's going to trigger. Like in Utah County, BYU might be like super awesome, but if a Utah fan comes into a BYU house, they might not like it and they could be triggered, right? Or vice versa, go to Salt Lake County and we're in red territory, the same kind of thing. So take all that down. If the wall's painted red, paint it. Paint it a neutral color. Same goes for blue. I had the same friend who had her house like super fancy, also loved the Broncos, like Idaho. Is that right? Idaho? Orange? Boise Broncos, right? Whatever they are. Orange and blue. Thank you. Their house they had a room that was like, their whole basement was orange and blue and dedicated to Boise. And I was like, whoa. My first response was, get me out of here. So that could be another buyer's first response. So we got to put ourselves into the buyer's position and neutralize our houses. So number one, and then repurposing or redesigning. So this is like the first processes. when you are sitting down with them in the staging consultation, you want to put approach it as a consult, it says consultative. That is not how I want to word this, but a consultative approach is how it's said. So basically, you're going to put some information in front of them and then you let them decide, right? So most of the time that means pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So if you can give them examples of before and afters, then they'll hopefully catch the vision. And then we talked about this, money talks. What are the costs of staging if we don't? So that was the mortgage, all the things if it sits for 2 or 3 months, or we have to drop the price a ton. We could get, by just spending maybe $1,000 to have your house pop, then you could save a lot of money. All right, so this number 3 is for us. So you as an agent, you have an option where you can be the agent and be the stager, or you can hire a professional. So here from the Shift book, it says good stagers are detail oriented. They have a good eye and are tactful and diplomatic communicators. So for us in our team, we kind of do both. We first start with do it ourselves. And then if we get to a point where we can't do it anymore, or we need to call in like somebody with furniture, then I have some go-to stagers. And we actually have some really great ones who are agents right here in our office. So Susie Clyde has done some for me. Cindy Yates is amazing. I don't know, there's others, right? But those are the 2 off the top of my head. So in our staging or in our listing guide, our package, we have just a few tips, but then I also have another brochure. So it's up to me as an agent to do my research, do my homework, and find out what staging is and what's important when staging a house. There's some really great resources. You can go to these websites, stagehomes.com, iahsp.com, those on realtor.com.org. You search in staging, and there's a whole bunch of articles that will pull up for that. You want to prepare some checklists for your clients. And then you want to have a network of professionals that you can have on hand, whether that's contractors. So maybe they have, their house needs to be painted. So do you have a painter? And give them your resources. Your clients will love you if you have people that you can refer who are reliable and who do great work. So these 2 books are also recommended in Shift. So I haven't read them yet, but while I was studying for this, I was like, oh, these are cool. I probably am going to order them now just because I like this kind of thing. I'm like the forever learner. So in addition to our listing guide, I've come up with another little printable deliverable that I give my clients that has 27 staging tips and tricks to selling your home fast. And so kind of going back to our number 1 thing, or actually when we go back to here, my number 1 tip that starts the whole staging process is home prepping. So what's the difference between home prepping and home staging? Anybody want to help me out here? And cleaning, right? Cleaning. Some people, it's twisted.
People raise your hands. We'll
all right, sorry. Some sellers even hire a home inspector to come to their house, and they'll do a pre-home inspection, not to give out to their clients, but hey, we want to know what's wrong with our house, and let's preemptively fix what's wrong with the house. So some of those things on this prep list could be, like you said, cleaning, but this isn't just like dusting and mopping. This is like deep clean, like baseboards and windows and the tracks of the windows, because believe it or not, buyers look at that, and when they see dirty, they're immediately turned off. even I am like, when we're seeing lots of homes and we go into the houses and you can tell there haven't been very good cleaners or it hasn't had a good deep clean in a while. It's like, don't touch anything, get in and out. And immediately we want to think about, oh, well, if we did offer on that one, we'd definitely come in lower because they don't seem to take care of their house very well, right? Another thing is on the home inspection, I always tell my clients, hey, get the HVAC serviced. Yeah, thank you. Get the HVAC serviced, change your filters, because again, buyers look at those things and sometimes they think, oh, these sellers are very irresponsible. They just don't know how to take care of their house. If there's a dirty filter, it could just have been, oh, the end of 2 or 3 months and they hadn't gotten to it. But before you start showing a house, you make sure that those things are done. That helps to create that value in the buyer's mind. So it's more than decorations, right? Staging is cleaning, decluttering, fixing all those repairs, the honeydew items that you just keep putting off because nobody wants to do those. And you're fine living with that, right? You're fine living with, I don't know, like for me, probably Ben's not fine with it, but we just finished the basement and he installed all the baseboards. And I was like, okay, well, since you installed the baseboards, I will caulk them and I'll putty and do the paint touch up. Well, that's been done for like 2 or 3 months. And I just keep putting it off because it's not staring at me in the eye every day. I'm fine. Eventually I'll get to it, right? Hopefully sooner and not right before we sell our house. But sometimes those things do get put off, right? Till you're like, oh shoot, we have all these things. So, yeah, so on my home prep checklist, I have get the HVAC service, replace outdated or broken fixtures. Just, by replacing your faucets or your light fixtures can really update the home. If you have a gross old toilet seat, like replacing that is a good place to start. These things don't cost very much money, but it makes a world of difference for the buyers when they're walking through. Washing the windows. Oh, another thing that I talk about is replacing the burned out light bulbs, but even going like the extra mile and replacing all the bulbs in the house to a bright white, because it helps the house feel brighter, lighter, more open. And I know it's probably a couple $100 to replace all of your light bulbs, but it's worth it. And it helps your photos. So not only do I have a staging, just a quick stage guide, but I also have a photography checklist, which kind of reiterates a lot of the things on this list, but that's what I provide my clients. So decluttering, when we talk about that, the one way that you can point out to the sellers is, hey, this is awesome because basically half of your house is going to be already packed, so kind of approach it that way so that they're not going to have as much work to do when they actually get an offer and have to move. So the decluttering comes down to, a lot of people like to keep stuff in their basement and use their basement as a storage unit or their garage as a storage unit. And so if they're gonna do that, which I don't love, like I would prefer them to get a storage unit and take a bunch of stuff to the storage unit, but if they absolutely have to, then that room needs to be like organized. And it needs to be in one side of the room, very organized and nice. And for the garage, if they're gonna use that, like again, it's better to get a storage unit, right? But if they have to, again, you're gonna push it all to one side and you want it so that you can walk through and you can at least see the space. So closets, buyers open closets and they open drawers. So take out half of your blankets, take out, if it's summertime, take all the winter things out. In your closets for your linens, take all that out because they want to see, oh my gosh, there's so much storage in this house. Look, everything's folded nice and pretty. They have so much room. And what they don't know is the seller just packed up 3 boxes of towels, and they're just living off of 4 towels. Okay, and then we talked about the paint. So as part of the evaluation, you're going to go through, and if there's any wild colors, you want to paint those neutral, you can. And carpet, these are all things in our home prep checklist before we even gotten to staging, right? Your home prep or your carpet, if you first start with a good cleaning, if that doesn't do anything, then it might be time. Now, what do you guys recommend? If somebody says to you, hey, is it better to do a credit? Or is it better to just change the carpet? What would you do? Angie, what would you do? Change the carpet. Anyone else? You are absolutely right. Change it, especially if they had animals. Yeah, and so if they did have animals, you might even want to change the carpet pad too. And depending on what type of animal and if there's anything else, they may even need to kills. K-I-L-Z. That can eliminate. So one time we had a house that, so some renters were living there and they had a guinea pig. Is that what it was? They had a guinea pig and it had a little cage, and this one bedroom was its cage. They let it out of the cage and it would run around the room and it would pee in the same spot every time, this corner. And it soaked up into the tack strips, into the floorboards, into the baseboards, and a little bit into the drywalls. It was gross, so gross. And it was this beautiful house. So the sellers were checked out because they had renters in there and they just wanted to get the house sold. So they're like, all right, we'll fix just that one room. And I was like, you guys need to do carpet to match it all up. Anyway, we ended up having a really tough time selling this house. And Ben and I actually ended up buying it. And then because we knew what happened in that room, we went in again and we ripped up the new carpet that the sellers just put in that one room, ripped it all up, did it all again, kills it again, and changed out everything. And the smell and everything in the house was better. Painted the house, made it nice, lived there for a couple years, and you know, the routine. Okay. Some other things that we look at is exterior. We've been talking mostly about interior, right? So curb appeal. So what are some things that we can do outside on the house? What are, like, if you were a buyer and you were looking at a house, what are some things that you would be looking for outside? What? The yard. What do you mean by that? Explain that. Okay, so
that the grass isn't dead and everything just looks nice.
Right.
And well
So
maintained.
right, well maintained. The sprinklers are working. It's nice and green. I know it's hot, so it might be a little yellow right now, but you can tell that they've been taking care of it a lot. We just went to a house the other day with a client and the yard was immaculate. Oh my goodness. It like sold the clients before we even walked in their house. We're like, if they can take care of their house or their yard like this, imagine what they're doing inside their house, right? So it was edged, it was trimmed nicely, it had some new bark. So I know it's expensive to do some things in the yard, but to me, I'm always telling clients, like, if you can at least add some black bark or something to the flower beds, if you can't plant flowers, at least do that because it does clean it and refresh the yard. And then add some potted plants around the entry, you know, to add some color, maybe a wreath on the front door, paint the front door if you need to.
Clean and stage the front porch.
Yes, perfect. Clean and stage the front porch and clean those lights. You're right, because bugs and gross stuff get caught up in there. Okay. So, all right, so let's move on. During the evaluation, this is like we've already kind of been talking about, we're reviewing the property. I'm making some written notes, and then we're going to hold the sellers accountable. I usually ask the sellers, we have, you know, I'm like, okay, so this is everything that needs to be done. What do you think you can do? Or when do you want to get your house listed? And they're like hem-hawing, you know, like, oh, I don't know. I want it soon, but I've got all this stuff. I'm like, okay, so do you think you can get it done in a week? Knowing that that's probably not enough time to do this. Your clients more than likely need at least 2 weekends is what I think. Because people don't have time in the week And so like the other day, we were just listing a house and he's like, how about we take the pictures on Saturday? And I said, how about we take that additional weekend, give you the extra time that you need. And how about we take the pictures on Monday or Tuesday? And then he was like, oh, because he was trying to be nice and trying to like speed up the process. But I just know that it's going to take more time. So I usually try to give my clients at least 10 days, depending on what they have. I mean, if there's major stuff that needs to be done, clearly that's not going to happen. Like we have a client in Sandy that 2 months ago started, well, we helped him buy a house. He's like, okay, well, I need the house re-roofed. And then he told me about some wind damage. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. Before you pay a roofer, let's talk to the insurance person. Because if there's wind damage, like there were actual tiles that had blown off, you could be able to claim this on your health insurance or home insurance and get that roof for your deductible, right? Which was $500. So he's like, okay. So we got all that worked out. They approved it. So that took a little bit longer. He's like, all right, well, I'm missing some siding in the back. So we can't find anything to match because the house is 40 years old, plus the sun, So he's like, I'm going to have to probably put that on and repaint the exterior. So I'm going to repaint the exterior and try to get all that done before the roof is done. Well, the insurance is taking a little longer to get the roof done. Anyway, we still haven't put the house on the market yet because, but I keep checking in religiously. How are things going? Where are we at? And we're trying to get it up by August, by the end of July. So that's our deadline. So trying to hold those sellers accountable, giving them a timeline, giving them exact steps and checklists of what they need to do. People like checklists, right? Something that is really organized and clear for them. And why are we doing this again? Why are we doing this?
Get top dollar.
Yeah, to get top dollar, to create value. And then if they need professionals, we're gonna make some recommendations, okay? So there's 4 main categories in 4 main areas that we wanna focus on. Does that mean that we leave all the other rooms, like just forget about them? No, but these are where we're gonna put the most emphasis in our entryway, our living room, our kitchen, and our master bedroom, okay? So if they can't, so for me, when I have staging, so actually this is a house where we ended up having some stagers come in. They did most of these pictures are houses that my clients have either fixed up or had stagers come in. After they've gotten the house all ready, we've put it on the market. Sometimes sellers forget that we have to keep it up. And so I provide a little showing etiquette of some things that they need to do. But keeping up appearances mean that we also have to like mow the yard every week. We have to keep that trimmed and mowed. We have to water. So we have a client who we just listed a house in Clarkston, and they left to Texas and just left everything, and everything's like dying. So I had to make a phone call. Hey, do you not have any neighbors in the area who can keep watering for you? Because Clarkston is green, beautiful valley in Cache Valley, and their whole yard is like brown. So it's not going to be good for them. All right. So the last thing is empty houses. So this one on the left is the same house. Susie actually, so we just did a little video. I guess I can stop the one on the right, right? When you look at the empty house, what do you see? Empty, right? Does anybody, when you go to new construction and you see the studs are up and then the drywall's put on, what happens in your mind usually? Like when all that is occurring, it feels smaller, right? It's really hard for some people, and I am one of those people, to spatially understand how big a room is until furniture is in the house. And I always point out when I'm with my buyers and we're going through a house, I always point out if there's a king bed with two nightstands on either side, because that gives you perspective on how big this room really is, right? So empty houses. I gotta find my notes. So we want to give a lived-in look. For one, we want it to be comfortable and cozy, and we want to help them feel, I mean, look at the difference, okay? Same house, same kitchen. And Susie did this for me. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was like 1,000. Yeah, somebody's nodding their heads. Yes. So I think for like your basic package of staging with most stagers is going to be like 1,000 to 1,500 ish. And they'll usually do the living room, the kitchen, like the dining room. And then they'll put a couple of things on the counter. They'll do the master bedroom. And those are the main areas that they hit. You can get the full house done, but you just have to pay extra. Now for me, this is up to you and how you would approach this to your seller. Are you going to cover the staging for them, or are you going to let them pay for it? Now for me, it depends on, I guess, what my listing agreement is. So for a full 3%, I will do the staging. I will pay for it. So if the house doesn't, so that's $1,000 for the first month. And then usually if it doesn't sell in that time, then the stager will charge you, I think it's like half the amount, or like $500-ish, to continue having the furniture in the home. But because they're not like doing work, it's just in storage in somebody else's house, then we just pay them that. So for me, it's worth it. I don't do it with every home. And sometimes maybe if I'm having trouble getting through to the sellers on what needs to be done in their home, sometimes you can just pay a stager to come and do a consultation with them, and they will walk through the house with them. And now that puts it off of you and onto another expert, a second opinion, who they will maybe trust even more for that aspect, right? So a consultation could cost for an hour, I don't know, $100 or a couple $100. That's worth it for them to come over and tell them how they should rearrange their furniture and take things off the walls and paint this wall and that kind of thing. So, am I missing any? Yes.
I was just gonna ask, have you done any research on like virtual staging, so like people take photos and like they'll virtually place things?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I actually opted to do that on a house recently. It's vacant. What? Oh, he asked if we do anything with virtual staging. So for an empty house. And I would say yes, I recently did that. However, I'm learning it's not enough. Like, we're gonna have to stage the house. Because here's another thing. In an empty house, that new construction might be different, but an older house, when you walk through a house that's empty, what do you look at? All the repairs. Yeah. So your eyes go to the paint problems. They go to the baseboards. They go to everything, the carpet, and they just start nitpicking every little thing in the house. And they're talking themselves out of the purchase or talking the price down. So, yeah, so staging the house is important, and do it. Are there any other questions? Anything you want to add?
Sorry, one last thing.
No, you're good.
Is there anything that you would suggest that buyers look for when people stage houses? Has there been any sort of like not good practices on staging sides of things to hide maybe some more major problems that should be disclosed?
Well, yes, I think sometimes people put rugs over spots or cracked tiles and things. And I think it's important to not do that. Do you want to
I was
ask?
just going to say, if you have a funky floor plan, staging is amazing because it highlights the good, draws your eye away from the weird, and it gives people ideas. I staged my own house when I sold it. It was from 1883. And the way she did that room, I was like, I wish I would have known how to decorate this space this whole time. It made it so much more functional. So, it's definitely worth the money, and it helps the buyer not have to really figure out what to do with this space.
Right. And I know that sometimes like the dollars sometimes get in the way for us, but and $1,000 is a lot of money, right? To pay for a service for a house that may or may not sell, but we're banking on it's going to sell. And I'm willing to lose that so that it will sell. It does. Yeah, absolutely. You're doubling down and increasing your odds. And really in the whole grand scheme of things, I remember Peter Morkel. Do you remember the story about the grass? Tell us the grass story last year.
About our grass?
Yeah. When you guys, wasn't it last summer, Peter talked about
Are you talking about the place in Eagle Mountain? I mean, in
Spanish Fork or somewhere, wasn't it? I don't know. Where you
I
guys
have
resawed
multiple
it, the
grass
whole
stories.
thing,
Yeah, we
or-
resaw. Okay. So, so yeah, on that one, we showed up at the house and the seller had moved about a month earlier, but had to get some things in order where he was and forgot to keep his water on. So none of us knew. And so we showed up at the house when he was like, okay, I think we're about ready. Let's get pictures. So we're like, hey, let's go check it out. And the lawn was totally dead, 100% dead. And it was covered in weeds. And we're like, oh crap. And so we just called the seller. We're like, hey, we're just going to resod the whole thing. And so
Yeah. And what's Peter's reasoning behind that? Why is he willing to pay for that and do it all?
well, we include pretty much everything that we do
Yeah.
in just the listing percentage, right? Because I mean, there's two sides of this. One is even if it's a 2% listing in some scenarios, right? It's the relationship with the seller and giving them the best experience as possible for the long term. We're thinking the long-term game
Exactly.
here, right?
Right.
But also there's our team, we don't want to put a listing on there that looks absolutely terrible and tacky and we Photoshop it. And so then suddenly the grass is green and they show up and it's not right. And we don't want that name associated with us. We want our listings to be clean and to be in a good shape.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is one point that I had on my notes and forgot to bring up is that your reputation as an agent matters. And my client experience matters. And part of my value proposition to my clients is that I'm going above and beyond for them, right? That's the expectation, a high level of service for our clients. And so I'm willing to go over, walk through the house. I'm willing to get my hands dirty. Josh and Peter's team is willing to lay sod.
So we actually did it all ourselves. We tilled the yard because we just had some time and it was July or something. And so it was a little bit slower. Sometimes July slows down for a
Yeah.
second.
Cool.
It was crazy hot. So I actually ended up doing it, but we rented a tiller and I the whole lawn and then we just laid the sod on top and it grew pretty quickly because it was, the sprinkler system was in. It was just ugly. So.
Exactly. And those clients probably love you, right?
Yeah.
They're going to refer you forever. So for Ben and me, I like to go into the houses. One time, oh my gosh, I said, I'll give you an hour of my time. I'm going to come over and help you. And I was there all day because the house was torn apart and I was helping her box things. I was moving furniture into areas because they had upstairs in their loft was just kind of they just had some bookcases. And I was like, okay, we have to give this room purpose. So if you have bookcases, that's good. So what can we make this? So we made it kind of like a study. We brought up some extra chairs that were throughout the house, a little love seat, and we created a little vignette upstairs to give that room purpose. And it kind of goes back to if there's a bedroom and they use it as an office, an exercise room, a toy room, all the things, you have to decide what is the purpose of this room and get everything else out. So give each room purpose. So I was over there all day. Now, Ben probably wouldn't do that, but Ben will go and build a deck for somebody. And he has done that. And that's his background is in construction. So there's different things that even on your teams, you need to train, if you have a team, you need to train someone on your team who has a good eye and can go and help with the staging. And then maybe you have somebody else on your team who can help with the repairs or something, or have contacts for repairs or something. But it's your job to train your team too, if you have a team on this. So there's so many different levels of staging. Mostly we've talked about simple stuff, right? But sometimes there's some pretty extensive hard stuff. And so with the simple stuff, we're just removing clutter. We're cleaning. We're reorganizing things. We might paint. I mean, a bucket of paint is like $30. Maybe it's more now. Maybe I think it is a lot of money. That's right. We had a bid when we were finishing our basement and we were like, what? This is so expensive, ridiculous. And anyway, $100 for a bucket of paint to clean or to paint one bedroom that might change the whole sale, right? Extensive stuff. This is where it's getting into like significant home repairs and new flooring and window treatments and upgraded kitchens and all those things, which I have had a client do once before. We couldn't sell their house. This was several years ago. They were in Harvest Hills. It was built in I think it was like a Salisbury, old kind of crappy-ish house. That's not very nice. It's a nice house. It was beautiful, but it needed help. Okay. Yeah. So they had like the oldest, like really bad, like the new type of laminate flooring, like from the 90s kind, the clickety clackety kind. Anyway, they had that in their house and they had the old cabinets and everything. Their house wasn't selling for what they wanted it to. We took it off the market. They replaced the floors. They updated the kitchen, put new countertops on, painted everything, painted the house. We put it back on the market and we sold it for more than what we had originally listed at, which was pretty high. So that's a whole extensive thing. And that's a conversation maybe for another day. But yeah, I don't know where I am at time-wise. So 10 minutes left, but okay, so let's open it up then to do you have any fun experiences that you'd like to share or questions that you'd like to ask?
Do you have stats that show, one, what is the average percentage difference in price between a staged and non-staged home? Also, do you have a stat that shows average, and it may be an old stat that you can only use, average days on market for a staged home versus non-staged home?
I do have some in my stuff, but I can't remember any off the top of my head. I know in the Shift booklet, it did say that New York Times did a study and they said that, what did they say? They said that stage listings sold almost twice as fast as non-staged houses and on average for substantially more. So they don't really give a full-on exact percentage, but and it didn't give me a date of the study. So I don't know, but that was in the Shift handbook.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the mindsets of the two different buyers? There's the buyer that's going to go in, he or she wants to go in and create value in the house so they can later turn around and sell it, kind of more of an investor type, or the person who just wants to come in and have no issues.
Yeah, most buyers, when they're looking for a home, they want a move-in ready house. They're putting a ton of money down on, for their down payment and closing costs. Some people don't have anything left by the time they move in to pay for any repairs. So they want a house that they can just slide right into, unpack their stuff and make it their own. So that's important to also stress to your clients that, when they're comparing houses on the MLS or anywhere, right? Or anywhere you find houses, they're going to be doing pros and cons for each house. And so you might think your house is unique, but you have to start thinking, okay, how does it compare to everything else on the market? So also when I am helping clients and sellers, I also show them pictures of their competition. So we talk about their solds and other homes that are under contract, but then I also show them, well, what's on the market? And this is what you're up against. How do you think your house compares? And sometimes that helps them just to get their minds thinking about, what do I need to do to improve the condition of my home so that I can sell it for this one over here that looks amazing. So that's one way to look at it. And then, like for the whole ugly house thing, if you're looking for ugly houses for a client, we have a client who is an interior designer. She likes to buy ugly houses, fix them up, and puts it all on her social media. She's like a Joanna Gaines type person, puts that out there because she's looking for content. So let's buy a house that needs to be fixed up. And then she shares the whole process, and that lasts her like a few months, right? And then she does it again. So we're looking for a completely different type of product in that case. And that would be like Taylor. He does that. He fixes and flips houses, right? So that's, I think, a whole other.
I was going to say too, I think too, when you're talking to your seller about the cost of something, it could be something as $100 fix, or like you said, a bucket of paint. But when a buyer walks in, for whatever reason, they think in thousands.
Right.
So, and it's time and it's energy. And I don't know if someone does that. And before they know it's a 30-day project, $4,000 is gone. And you're like, it'll take you 2 hours and $100. So I think helping them register the difference between just a little bit of effort on your point and saving money on the other side. Cause sellers too.
You're right. Buyers start racking things up.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't just replace the leak. We have to replace the whole shower, the whole everything, new tile. They just go like from a little minor thing to something major in like a blink.
How do you, when a house is vacant, it's easier to have a stager come in and just stage the whole thing. When you have people living there and you go through and you give them ideas or hints or tips, but what is your best advice for families that are living in the home? So we really can't have professional staging products come in.
So I have had professional staging products come in with families who are living in the house. And what they do in between, they didn't actually bring in full furniture. They just brought in, they didn't really decorate their house. It was just like, it was a 6 acre property, and we were selling it in 1 point something. And so I was like, okay, this house has to reflect this type of property that they're buying. And so we just had, the stager came through and did a consultation. They're like, okay, well, we're going to use these couches, their couches, but we're just going to bring in some different pillows. We're going to bring in some rugs to match. And so then it was kind of on the buyers or the sellers to make sure that they took care of everything. So what they would do in between showings is they would kind of take all the little things that might get dirty or damaged for kids and animals, and they just kind of put it in a bucket. And then they just had it all ready so that when a showing request came, they just give them 30 minutes and they'd kind of put it all out exactly how the stager had it before. So they took pictures of everything. But also something to consider is with kids and pets. With kids, you want to just say, hey, what are your 3 or 4 favorite toys? Everything else is going to get boxed up, get everything out so that it's just minimal cleanup, because kids are going to make a mess. I've gone through that with littles, and it's fun and not fun. Oh yeah.
I use it's about $600 to an accessory stage.
Yeah, I guess that's
And that
kinda what we
includes
did, huh?
pictures on the wall and things like that
Yeah.
you really don't, the family can live there, things on the cupboard.
Yeah.
If they're worried, like you said, you could put them away. But
Yeah.
even in a vacant house, if you did an accessory stage, at least the mantle, the cabinets, the countertop, if they aren't willing to or don't want to do furniture, do an accessory stage, because at least it draws your eye to things instead of plain blank nothing.
Right.
And it's
Yes.
much cheaper.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we did. Yes, Dean?
I was going to say a couple of things. I tell everybody, especially when they're living in the home, that you sell a home differently than the way you live in the home.
Yeah.
And so one of the secrets I've done with kids is I'll find out from the parents and make sure I get their permission first. But to say, if you guys keep your rooms neat and clean, and this is what it looks like, when your house goes under contract, I'm buying dinner or buying, providing whatever. I remember Pizza Pie Cafe for a family of 5, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But man, those kids, those rooms are clean every time, every day. And those are just some ways to help keep that home staged and keep it in great shape.
Yeah, I love that. And also with pets, you want to remove any sign of pets too when people are coming through the house.
So to answer your question, Bart, NARS says the stats of staging a house is between 1% and 5% higher compared to unstaged homes.
That's good. Thank you. So anyone else want to add to? So just kind of going back to this whole idea of a shifting market, Dean said, how many homes are on the market now? Just over 9,000. So every home that we list has competition now. So how are we going to set our homes apart from all of the competition on the market? And I will say, even when the market was crazy and we had like 1,900 homes on the market, the homes that were decorated and were clean and looked nice from the pics went first. And it was always the ones that weren't as staged or not as clean that stayed on the market when they shouldn't have, in a market of only 19 homes or 1,900 homes. So staging will definitely set you apart. It will make it a difference between sitting on the market so you can sell it faster and hopefully for more money, going back to the stat of 1 to 5% more than homes that are unstaged. So thanks.